Welcome to another edition of The Coach and the Contractor with Eric Newton and Jeff Scott. And today our guest is Chad Morris. Chad, we're really excited to have you on the podcast. Thanks for doing this. We know you're busy these days. Got a lot going on, and I'm sure you'll tell us about that a little bit later. But and I know you got a kid playing D1 football at Virginia, so I know that's exciting. Keeps you on the road a good bit. So let's just jump right in. Tell us what you're doing these days.
Well, first of all, I appreciate you guys having us on. Anytime I can connect with our Clemson family, it's always a special thing and a special place in our heart. Paul and I truly loved our time. I know we'll talk about that, but I do appreciate you and Coach Scott having me on. And so, really, what I'm doing, of course, I'm kind of in transition, I've been coaching, actually been coaching for 33 years, and this year was the first time I've stepped back to be a dad and to be able to watch Chandler play, and so I kind of feel like I got to be doing something at all times, got that coach mode in you, but I'm working with a data analytic group that works with college and high school coaches, a company called Answers. And it's really what it is the software that coaches use to break down film. It helps you create your reports faster, really kind of dial in deep to some of the ins and outs of game planning. And so I'm able to work with coaches, still be able to, visit and go around the country and see colleges and still stay connected, which has really been pretty cool to do this past year.
So it's an AI platform.
It's similar. There's got some AI to it, but a lot of it is you're really able to peel, as a coach would say, you're really able to peel the onion back deep as you go into breaking down defensive game plan, offensive game plans, whatever. You can really find out, different things in different parts of the field. Really neat. Something I wish I had. I know Coach Scott would, wishes he had is when he was a coordinator as well.
You know, they say that AI is going to replace a lot of humans in a lot of different businesses. Is it going to replace coaches?
Well, some fan
They're
bases
going to be able to
will.
they're going to be able to call plays one day.
Well, yeah, I don't put anything past that, but I do think I do think we're on the verge of literally having AI read a film and break the film down for you and tell you what's the best call to make in that situation. I don't think we're very far away from that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
that's really interesting.
instead of analytics telling you to go for it on 4th and 1, 4th and 2, which now ESPN has what analytics say, we're a couple of years away. It's going to be like AI says this is the best play to run on that situation.
Hey Jeff, do you think AI would have helped our golf game over the this past weekend? I'll
Uh,
tell you a quick funny story. Jeff, we were playing in we were on a little golf trip this past weekend in Indiana, and Jeff was playing against one of his clients, actually one of his Haven Valley clients, and he kept looking at his phone, checking to see where Lou was, and
Yeah.
they were at first Jeff was beating the tar out of him, and then he somehow miraculously caught back up, and so Jeff, we were on a par five, and he was sitting in really good shape, middle of the fairway, had about 240 yards out, and he's like, I think I'm gonna go for the screen, and there's water all around it and the creek in front of it, and I thought to myself, Jeff, you're are you kidding me? You're gonna go for the screen? He said, "Oh, I think the analytics tell you should go for it here." And so he did, and guess what he did? He sprayed it left.
hard left, hard left. Yeah, I needed definitely somebody to help me with that part. Maybe with my swing overall. But no, that's great. With Chad, we're really excited to have you on. Obviously, you and I go back a ways, and it's fitting that you join our podcast because I've been telling Eric, as Eric and I have spent a lot more time together here over the last year, kind of in our partnership on the business side. I've just shared a lot about you and Paula and our friendship. I think it was about 15 years ago there, coming up on 15 years, about 2011 into 2010, whenever you joined us at Clemson. And maybe for some of our younger audience listening that maybe doesn't know the history, but Chad was a key hire. I mean, Coach Sweeney. We had just finished Coach Sweeney's second season as the head coach at Clemson. And in '09, we had a pretty good season in Coach Sweeney's first year, went to the ACC championship game, lost to Georgia Tech in a game that neither team punted, which is pretty crazy. But our second season in 2010, we really had a tough year. We finished 6-7 and lost to South Florida in the Charlotte in a bowl there in Charlotte. And so it was a really key hire in Coach Sweeney's young tenure at Clemson. And I just remember when Coach Sweeney made that change for with the offensive coordinator, there was a lot of word and a lot of maybe fans wanting Coach Sweeney to go out and hire a college a very experienced offensive coordinator with a lot of years in college, all these type of things, especially with Coach Sweeney being a younger head football coach in the country. But Coach Sweeney obviously made an incredible hire, and in the way that only Coach Sweeney could, really just kind of thinking outside of the box, and whenever he brought Coach Morris into Clemson, I believe you'd had one, obviously, a long tenure as a very successful head coach at the Texas high school level for many years, but really only 1 year there at Tulsa as the OC before coming to Clemson. So, Coach Morris, just share maybe for some of our listeners just kind of what that experience was like whenever you chose to come join us at Clemson.
Well, you bet, man. And first of all, for our listeners out there that as you mentioned, our relationship, and of course, what Sarah and you and Hunter and Savannah mean to us is instrumental, and we love you guys. But I'll also say this, for our listeners, that Jeff and Sarah, back about 15 years ago, are the ones that I remember coming over one night. We cooked steaks. And next thing I know, I hear a bunch of racket going on upstairs, and Jeff is up there teaching both my kids how to play poker. So I credit Jeff to Chandler and McKenzie's ability to play poker. So
Man, I've already got one story of me hitting the ball into the water, another story of me teaching elementary, middle school kids how to play poker. So we're off to a good start here in our first 5 minutes. I appreciate
it
that.
was great. A great life lesson. Now, I'm going to say I think McKenzie might have won a little bit of money in college playing poker. Who knows? But no, yeah, when that happened that year, and obviously Clemson goes 6-7. I was at Tulsa with Todd Graham, and we had just came off of a great year. We beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame, won the Hawaii Bowl, and I remember we were out there, and I get a phone call. Literally, we're practicing in the stadium in Hawaii, and I get this 864 number pops up on my phone and a voicemail, and so I step off to the side because Coach Graham, you didn't never take a phone call around Coach Graham. So I had stepped off to the side before practice, listened to my voicemail, and it was Coach Sweeney. And he would say, "Hey, look, I'd like to talk to you." And so fast forward, I wound up coming out there on the interview, and I remember it was obviously there were a lot of big names. Yeah, I think just going back to some of the names, Ralph Friedgen was one of them. I think Justin Fuente was another one. And then here I am, just 1 year of experience and of coaching college ball, and we were successful and had a great offense. And I just kept thinking to myself, man, it just I just don't know. I don't know if he's in a pinch, and he's got to make this hire right. Can he trust the fact that I'm, being 1 year in? And, but what I will say about Coach Sweeney is, Jeff, is that he's got a great vision, and he's probably one of the best I've ever been around in that. And he doesn't mind taking chances. And I never forget when he called me and he said, "Hey, come be a Tiger." And I said, "Coach, I'll walk backwards to Clemson." And then we came, and obviously we instilled a new offense, and everybody jumped on board, Man, it was just it was a great collection of men in that room that we had. And you know that, Jeff, and because it takes that. And we all believed in what we were doing. And the next thing you know, we're sitting there 8-0 and rolling and playing for ACC championship, winning it and the whole bit.
Yeah, no, it was a very exciting time, and especially, for me, it was my, I guess, third or fourth year as a college coach, my third year at Clemson. And, the offense that we had run prior to you getting here, we'd kind of tried to become everything to everybody type deal. And there's just a lot there. We really didn't have a great identity of who we were. And I remember when you came in and really showed us the offense. I mean, it was very, it had answers. It's kind of interesting. The group you're working with now as a consultant is called Answers because back in, 2011, man, that your offense had answers. And we knew so much that whenever they were bringing field pressure, I remember Sammy Watkins as a true freshman receiver. He sees field pressure coming. He hears check, check on the sidelines. He's already moving to the formation. He already knows what you're about to call right there because of the answer versus field pressure. And I think the combination of you coming in, I mean, Coach Sweeney knew, we had DeAndre Hopkins coming back as a sophomore. We had Taj Boyd coming back. And then we had a great freshman class of some elite offensive athletes with Sammy Watkins, Mike Bellamy at the time, Martavis Bryant, Sharon Peak. And Coach Sweeney knew, hey, we need to get an offense that our freshmen can be able to play early. And your offense definitely allowed that. And then also a big thing was getting the ball to the playmakers. And let's don't make it more complicated than it has to be. But for you to be able to come in, not only with the playbook that you brought, but even bigger than that was your energy, your passion, your belief. And I mean, honestly, I look back on it now and kind of see everything that has happened at Clemson, through the last few years. And obviously, Coach Sweeney being the head coach is a major part of that. But you with the offensive side of the ball and really giving us that offensive identity was a big part of that. I was just trying to think of a few things that maybe we could talk about now that it's been, over 10 years. But one thing that stands out to me that I want to really bring up for our Clemson fans, because I think it was a pivotal, a big change, in my opinion, of kind of how Clemson invested in the program. But I know, obviously, Chad, you and I became really close very early on there, and as we did, we started off 8-0, unbelievable. I think we beat three ranked teams 3 weeks in a row with Auburn and FSU here in Death Valley, and then going to play at Virginia Tech. And so we went from, again, being 6-7 the year before to now we're 8-0, and your offense is lighting it up. And I remember you letting me know, and you were having a conversation. I believe Urban Meyer was out of coaching at the time, and maybe he did a couple of our games there, and was getting ready to take the Ohio State job, and maybe was talking to you about going to Ohio State. And as you were telling me this, and honestly, when you were telling me some of the numbers that were being talked about at the time, were much larger than maybe the investment and what you're getting paid at Clemson. And I remember the first thing I told you is, well, get ready to, I wish you the best of luck, because I can tell you one thing, I've been around Clemson a long time, and there's no way that they're going to be able to match anything like that. And because we had just lost a couple coaches to Alabama in the past, assistant coaches, and then all of a sudden, with Coach Sweeney going to the AD, I believe it was Dan Radakovich at the time. No, it was Terry Don Phillips. Terry Don, Coach Sweeney went to Terry Don, and all of a sudden the next day you had a 6-year contract. And I went, wow. And I actually went and told my dad, who was on staff, there at Clemson at the time. I said, you know what? This, to me, this is Clemson has decided that they really want to play ball, and they're willing to invest in the program and the coaching staff to be able to keep, the top guys here. And that was, to me, just kind of being a player at Clemson watching, that was a big moment right there. And a lot of that goes to Coach Sweeney also to say, hey, this is what we have to be if we're going to be at the very best. And so I know that was fun. There's also another story. I won't go into great detail, but with that contract, you had a very, very large buyout. And there was an SEC team that I heard. I actually was listening. I was with Chad, so I heard the AD call Chad and was going to pay $3 million for his buyout to buy him out as the OC to go to their team and be the OC. And Chad, of course, decided to stay. But the big thing I remember is just, I mean, offensive explosion. I went back to look at a couple things here before the podcast today, and really just want to get a few of your memories there. But a couple two things that I thought were pretty awesome in your first 3 seasons as the offensive coordinator at Clemson. Clemson was one of only 2 teams to have a 3,000 yard passer, 1,000 yard rusher, and 1,000 yard receiver in 3 consecutive seasons. I mean that had not really been done at that time, and then also 2012, 2013, we became the first ACC team to average over 40 points a game in consecutive seasons. And so just absolute explosiveness. But just tell us a little bit about what you remember about that offense and those guys out there.
Well, Jeff, as we come in, I remember coming in that year, that spring, and if you remember, we had a lot of guys that were injured, and a lot of guys. Sammy hadn't gotten there yet. I mean, there we had some guys that just DeAndre was playing basketball, so it was kind of hard to get him going. And I remember, I remember Taj Boyd just having a hard time catching a snap. And I thought, I went to Woody and I thought, Woody, I don't know, man. I mean, I thought y'all said we had some players. I mean, what's going on? And of course, Dabo's trying to encourage me. I think you're trying to encourage me. Hey, we got some guys coming. Just hang on. I mean, and I mean, it was so bad. Remember, we had to send Taj to the eye doctor. I thought he needed glasses. And he came back and he finally told me, he goes, Coach, I just never really been in a shotgun offense before. But and that those are the fun things. At the time, it was kind of scary because you're like, oh no, this may not end well. But those are the fun times, and Taj and I still laugh about that to this day. But I brought an identity. I brought this is what we want to do. And the thing about what I brought in, it became from mine, it became ours. And all of our guys in that room, and you and Tony and Danny and Robbie, and we all collectively took ownership of it. And that was really the cool thing about it. It was, I remember one of your jobs that I gave you was that on Mondays, Sundays and Mondays, you were to go and look at different ways to be creative and take shots down the field. And you would go do that, and you would come back, and then me and you would watch film together, and then we would put our ideas together. And Tony would go and watch the run game and how to be creative in some of the run game, him and Robbie and Danny, and so it became ours. And I think that was so critical at that time. We all, yes, hey, the OC was getting some credit and all that, but it became us. And man, I remember we had this guy. I remember your dad taking me down to Fort Myers. It was my very first recruiting trip when I first got there that spring. He's like, "Hey, we got this guy down here by the name of Sammy Watkins. And so at that time, your dad had such a great relationship with a high school coach, and you did as well. And your dad being from that area, and I mean, he really thought Sammy was in good shape. But Florida had Sam, I think Sammy's stepbrother or
Yep.
half was playing at Florida, and so we were worried that Urban was fixing to flip or not Urban. I guess at the time it would have been. I'm trying to think who followed Urban. It might have been Urban. I don't know.
Yep.
Anyways, was gonna flip him, and so he said, "Look, whatever we do, let's just get down there and let's go see Sammy. We'll take you in the door." And I remember going in and sitting down and seeing Sammy and just said, "Listen, man, just give me a chance. Um, if you do, I promise you, you're gonna look up in a game and you're going, Coach, give me out a little bit. You're running me too deep, or you're giving me the ball too much." And he just kind of laughed. I said, "Just give me a chance." And of course, obviously, the rest is history. He became one of the greats at Clemson, and so instrumental to our success. I also remember, I know you do this as well, but they introduced me and they introduced me to offense or introduced me to our team. And I remember Dwayne Allen. Dwayne, Dwayne, he might have been a little bit of a rebel early on. And he was kind of, but had some talent. And I remember Dwayne raising his hand in a team meeting. And he goes, "Hey, we're here running this spread offense. I don't know if you use a tight end or not." He goes, "How are you going to use me?" And I said, "Well, Dwayne, if you'll trust us, I promise you, we're going to make you one of the most explosive tight ends, both on the line and in the backfield in the country." And I said, "But you got to trust us." And what does Dwayne do? Winds up winning the Mackey that year. And so those are the unique stories along the way, that we built, that we DeAndre, from moving DeAndre all over the field, putting Sammy all over the field. But really, Jeff, the whole thing was, and I think you could attest to this too, was our ability to be simple but look extremely complicated through the motions, through the window dressing that we did, to be creative. I firmly believe, and still believe to this day, you have to be creative in offensive football. You got to find a way to make the backers and make the safeties at least stick their cleats in the ground for a count, because there's a lot of stuff flying by their face. And it's what's made us successful, but yet and do it at a high speed. And we were snapping the ball. I think when Coach Sweeney hired me, I remember coming in there in an interview. He said to me, and I'd done my research, and I think you guys were, I think the year before you averaged like 26 points a game, and we're snapping the ball about 58 times a game. I think it was 58 to 60. And I knew immediately that low-hanging fruit, that if I could come in there and increase the snap total at least by 12. And on average, you score a touchdown or field goal every 12 snaps. That's across the board. 12 to 15 snaps, you score a touchdown or field goal. And I told Coach Sweeney, I said, "Coach, if I could take our snap total from 58 or 60, whatever it was, and just push it to 75." I said, "I think we're going to be snapping it at 80, but just pushing it 15 snaps." I said, "What would a touchdown or field goal have done this past year?" And he looks at me and he stops and he goes, "Well, you wouldn't be here. If we had a touchdown or field goal in every one of our games more, you wouldn't be here, Chad." And I said, "The proof's in the pudding. Let's go do it." And so we did. What did we do? We drove our snap count total up. We increased our creativity, and the amount of shots we took down the field. I think, Jeff, we talked that every week. We go, we want to take three a quarter, which is 12 a game. If you can take 12 a game and call 12 shots a game, then probably three of them you're going to get pass interference. Three of them you're going to connect on. And the other three, you're going to make a defensive coordinator, or the other six, you're going to make defense coordinator go, "Oh, wow, they're not afraid to throw the ball deep." And so making teams play a sideline to sideline and end zone to end zone with our creativity, I think was really instrumental during that time.
Yeah, I remember you had a few games that were in the snap count was in the 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah. We snapped the ball, I think 105 times. I think a couple of times while we were there. But yes, it was well into the 90s, several of them.
And it was such a fun offense to watch. You knew at any moment you could score. It's like you get down a couple touchdowns, oh, no big deal. We're going to get back in it.
Well, and Jeff said it best. It had answers, and we have answers with it. It's I think we're playing NC State at home, and we run a route called Shake, and it was Shake Nine, and DeAndre was on their sidelines, and we ran Shake Nine, which is about a 12-yard quick dig for DeAndre. And I remember we threw it, and it was a bang bang play. The safety immediately jumped it, and I look at Jeff, and Jeff looks at me, and I go, and we call any double move we called pat the head. I go, "Okay, hey, it's time to pat the head here." And so it was Shake Nine, pat the head, and I'll never forget. It might have been the next play. If it wasn't then, it was two plays after. But DeAndre goes on a quick stutter in on his dig and takes it vertical, and the next thing you know, I mean, Taj is just dropping the ball. I mean, there's nobody around DeAndre. So again, it always had an answer with it, and that was special.
Chad, talk a little bit about one of the games that I think about that really was one of the first really big wins during Coach Sweeney's tenure was the bowl game against LSU there at the Chick-fil-A Bowl. I think LSU was ranked number 9 in the country. Very, very talented. I remember I tell people all the time, That was the most impressive, physically most impressive team that I've ever seen walking out during pregame. I had to make sure my own players couldn't see me go, oh my gosh, these guys are giants. I remember pregame, I was talking to Tony Elliott. I was like, man, that's a great group of linebackers out there. They were in t-shirt and shorts warming up. And Tony looks at me and said, Jeff, I hate to tell you, that's not the linebackers, that's their corners. I mean, they were 6'2", 222 pounds or something out there. But incredible game. I think we had 106 plays in that game. Talk about just a few of your memories from that, and obviously kind of what went into the 4th and 16 on the game-winning drive.
Yeah, before we get into that, I know that last question we talked a little bit about the Ohio State deal, and I want to kind of circle back to that. I don't want to forget that. But during that year, you're right. Remember, Urban came up and he couldn't understand why he was losing recruits to Clemson until he came up and started calling our games. And then he fell in love with what we were doing offensively. And I remember about week 4, week 5, Urban would call me every week. He wasn't coaching, he was broadcasting. And he was just mesmerized at what we were doing with our receivers and our tight ends. And I'll never forget, he would always call me and he would say, hey, look, this is how I handled Aaron Hernandez, because that was that great tight end they had. And he would say, man, I love what you're doing with Dwayne Allen. This is what I did with Aaron. And through that, and Urban had recruited Jevin Sneed, one of my quarterbacks. And so I knew Urban prior to, but he was just infatuated with what we're doing. And he kept telling me, he goes, look, I'm going to get a big job. And he goes, I want you to be my OC. And at the time you're in the middle of the season, okay, hey, you bet, whatever. Well, as we unfold, I remember us getting ready to play the ACC championship. Urban's just fixing to be announced as the Ohio State head coach. And it was December the 3rd, I think we won the championship because the next day, December 4th, was my birthday. And that's when all this stuff started going down. And Urban was like, look, I'll have a plane sitting at the Clemson airport. I want you to come be my OC. And I remember you and I talking distinctly about this. And I'm just like, and Chandler was just he was just a young snotty nosed kid at the time, but he was like, Dad, hey, that's the horseshoe. He goes, we're leaving Howard's Rock to go to the Horseshoe. And I'm like, no, hang on, pump the brakes here, bud. We're not doing that. And so then that's when all that happened. And, Dabo calls me in and I remember Dabo telling me, he goes, look, you're fixing, you're going to a 6-year contract. Just so you know how much we care for you. I'm only on a 4-year contract. And so at that point you realized, okay, wow, Coach Sweeney, for him to do that, and to me, and I think it just laid the groundwork for what came ahead. And so, yeah, I wanted to come back to that, but that was some nip and tuck moments. I wasn't going to leave Clemson. It was just we had something special going there, but so, anyways, yeah, and then fast forward, and next thing you know, we're playing LSU and in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. And if you remember, man, we had such a great game plan for Sammy. We were going to bring him in the backfield. We were going to hand him the ball. I mean, we were going to do all kinds of stuff, and we had this great elaborate plan. And I remember like the second play of the game, we bring Sammy in the backfield, and we're running a counter with him like we've done. And man, he gets rocked and boom, he's out. And I remember Danny Poole coming to us and going, "Hey, Sammy's done. He's not." So it's like, okay, we're looking at this game plan, and we're like, "Oh, he's so much a part of this game plan."
I think we had 21 ways to get the ball to Sammy. That
Yeah,
was part of that game plan.
that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And so, at that point, it became I remember looking at them and they're warming up, and I didn't even want to look on that end of the field. They had the Honey Badger. They had, I think, 9 of the 11 were NFL draft picks. It was incredible. The year before, I think that was the year they won the national championship or whatever it was. But um, yeah, and so uh, in pregame, I was more looking at Shaquille O'Neal on the sidelines. I was kind of overlooking at him and trying to see how I could sneak over and get a picture with him, but because I didn't know how this was going to go. And so, but man, just our kids is just the fight, the grit, the toughness that we instilled that day, and the hits that Taj took and just kept getting back up. DeAndre having such a huge pivotal game. Andre Ellington. I mean, everybody just when Sammy went down, it's just like, hey, no big deal. Adam Humphries, no big deal. We got this. And then obviously the last drive of the game, which and you and I have talked about this, Jeff, and I firmly believe this. I think that that game alone, if you could go back and look at the history of Clemson and the success that we've had since then, I think that game put us over the top. I think that game showed everybody, showed us that okay, we can do this, and the best is yet to come. And I remember, we go down and it's that last drive of the game, and we got to drive it down to kick the field goal or score a touchdown to win it, and boom, we're sitting there 4th and 16, and obviously there's been a lot of stuff written about it, pictures framed over it, and talk about it, and the real story to this is, if you remember, we called
Yeah.
timeout.
Yeah.
And this was it. And Brandon Ford, we're over there on the sidelines, and we don't practice a whole lot of 4th and 16s. Not just a, there's not a menu on your play card for 4th and 16. And so we're sitting there, and I remember Brandon Ford said, "Coach, let's do Florida switch." And for those that don't know what Florida switch is, Florida was our four vertical game, and switch means we're switch verts. So they're actually switch seams. And he goes, I'm telling you, that safety's going to widen with me, coach. And I think DeAndre can get underneath him. And I said, you know what? Let's do it. And so we call Florida switch, and Taj throws a dime. DeAndre slides. Sure enough, the safety widened just enough to DeAndre makes that catch, and obviously the rest is history. We drive down, catch a few more plays. Now we still had to convert and get down the field to get this field goal kick, but we throw the slant to Adam Humphries to set the field goal up, and we went it in a walk off. And what just a great memory. But I do feel like that was the game that just put us over the top. I really do.
How much input do you take from the players during a game? You mentioned that particular situation. Do you with Brandon Ford, like do you value their input, or does it bother you when they're trying to throw their 2 cents in the middle of an intense game like that?
Oh no, 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 not at all. I mean, first of all, it depends on who the player is. You know, he's a knucklehead. If he's a knucklehead and just wants the ball, then no, you don't value that opinion. But our guys, man, they bought into what we were doing and what we were about, and you knew when they said something, you needed to listen. And I'll even go back to the game that year we beat Florida State, and I remember Sammy looking over us. We threw a slant. And Sammy looked over. This is a freshman now. He looks over at us, and he says to us, he goes, "Hey, call sluggo," which is a slant and go. And man, I thought, well, this dude knows what he's talking about. So what do? We call sluggo, and the next thing you know, he's quick slant on a go. Taj drops it in. We go score, and so yeah, you listen to those guys. They're out there playing. They got a feel for it, and I think that's also a credit to the relationship we had with our players too. And they knew that if they spoke, we would listen.
Um, Chad, one thing that our listeners may not know is, how critical you were in the recruitment of Deshaun Watson, and obviously all the way back to his freshman year. And, I just kind of look, obviously you had an incredible impact the 4 years that you were with us at Clemson. And then, you leave, go back to your home state to be a head coach there at SMU, and do a really good job of building that program. But 2 years later after you left, here we are winning a national championship in Tampa with Deshaun Watson. And, people on the inside that really were around the whole deal. I mean, Tony and I mean, we knew we wouldn't have been prepared at any rate without being around you for the 4 years and really continuing the Clemson offense after you left. Was very critical to those national championships. But also, Deshaun, just incredible. You got to coach him his freshman year, but maybe just one or two of those recruiting stories with Deshaun, and just kind of your relationship with him through that process.
Well, Jeff, as everywhere, you always take great pride in leaving a place better than you found it. And, I remember when I got there, I remember Coach Sweeney and I, especially after that first year, we had that talk, and he just said, "Hey, listen, I want you to do one thing for me." And he goes, "Man, I want you to just help prepare, Jeff and Tony Um, just teach them everything you know. Teach them the ins, the outs, what you look for, and and obviously we did. And so just and that was a credit to both you and Tony as well. But we had a great relationship, and you guys believed in what we were doing. And so. Um, and then, obviously the recruiting piece to it. I think, I remember going down, I hadn't been there long, and I had this at the time, if you remember, all the recruits were on discs,
Yeah.
DVDs. I remember putting a DVD in, and I'm watching this kid named Deshaun Watson his freshman year, and there were three clips. The first three clips, I think the first clip he extended a play with his feet, threw the ball, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. I'm gonna watch the second clip. Second clip, I think he threw a great deep ball down the field and in the pocket and had pretty good zip on it, and I'm like, this is really good. And the third clip, he takes it and he carries a fake out and goes about 10 yards on a fake. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is a freshman and he's carrying his fakes out. So at that point, Deshaun became a household name for us. And I remember going down there that spring of his freshman year, Jeff, to his basketball game. And I'm the only college coach there. We've already offered him. I'm the only college coach there. And I've got McKenzie, I've got Chandler, I'm dragging Paula down there. And we're sitting in Gainesville, Georgia, and I'm watching a freshman kid that's finishing his freshman year play basketball. Are you kidding me? And I'm doing this, and I'm like, I hope this is going to be worth it. I hope it'll be worth it. Well, fast forward, that next year he's going into sophomore year. We finish our camp. Remember, he comes to camp, and he obviously, he's everything we thought, and man, it's going to be a ride now to hang on to this kid. And but we felt like if we could get our relationship, dig in. Well, if you remember, he's coming back. We finished our camp. We're going on vacation. And you know how it is, Jeff. In June, every coach, don't be standing in the parking lot when Coach Sweeney says it's time to go vacation because you'll get run over. Coaches are getting out of that parking lot in a hurry. Our car's packed. Y'all's cars are packed. Paul is excited about vacation. Sarah's excited about vacation. And I have to come back, and you and I are talking. It's like, okay, Deshaun's Gainesville High School is going to come back up here to go to basketball camp. And it's going to cut into our vacation. It's going to be the first day of our vacation. But Chad, I think we need to be sitting there and in the gym when he walks in. And I'm like, yeah, we got to. Well, Paula, Sarah upset, oh, whatever. I said, look, I think it'll be worth it. But remember that we had
I
to
do.
play
Yeah.
on vacation for Deshaun
Yeah.
Watson. We were there, and I mean, it just stuff like that. I remember taking Chandler out of class and, and to go down and watch Deshaun play basketball or play football on our open week, and we were running late, and I had to feed Chandler, so I stopped at QT and got him a corn dog. He still talks about that corn dog to this day. I said, dude, this is all you're gonna get. Get you a corn dog from QT, man. They're pretty good, man. Just get one on the back rollers, not the front rollers. Get them on the back. And but golly, having the time invested, and obviously we had to survive some storms with Deshaun from his connection at Ohio State, the connection at Auburn. I mean, there was some bumpy waters, but we hung in there. I mean, there was a time Coach Sweeney was like, "I'm done with him, Chad. I'm done, Jeff. I'm done. Get it. Forget it. Go get somebody else." I'm like, Coach, time out. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. We've put a lot of time in on this kid. And I remember telling Deshaun, I said, Deshaun, I'm telling you, man, if you take another visit, I don't know what I'm going to do, man, And so, but it was collective. I mean, you and I went down there. I mean, how many times a week go down there? I mean, we had every strategic plan we could do to get that kid. And we knew everybody in Gainesville, Georgia. But we also knew once we got him and he was just like, Coach, I'm never going to lose to South Carolina. I know that. And guess what? He never lost to
Never
South
lost.
Carolina. Even on a torn ACL, he never lost South Carolina.
Yeah, the crazy part of that story is after we beat South Carolina that that year with Deshaun's freshman year, I guess that'd be 14. And I'm over with some Clemson buddies over there in the Tiger Den, I believe, behind the SO, just celebrating the win. And they come up to me and said, "Deshaun played on a torn ACL?" I said, "No, he didn't." He said, "Yeah, Coach Sweeney just said in the press conference." I was like, "There's no way I would have known that." And I called you, and you're like, "Yeah." only maybe Coach Sweeney, you, the trainer, and his mom. They're about the only ones that knew that, and that obviously tells you the competitor that Deshaun is. Well, before we close, obviously we want to talk about Chandler a little bit. But before we talk about Chandler, I want you to tell everybody about your daughter McKenzie. Obviously, got married this summer. Sarah and I had a great time going to the stockyard there for the wedding there in Fort Worth this past summer. But maybe just share a little bit about McKenzie, what she's doing in the college football space, and her husband as well.
Yeah, graduate from Daniel High School, and just had a birthday yesterday. Just just had a birthday, and so yeah, time flies. It's crazy how she's married now, and her husband Fisher Ray Fisher is on the staff at Ole Miss. Dad's a longtime high school coach in Mississippi, and mom's an educator. And so they met at Ole Miss. McKenzie is the director of on-campus recruiting for Ole Miss, and so she was with us at Arkansas. And when all that happened there, she goes to North Texas and works for Seth there, and then Lane comes and hires her, and she's starting her fourth season there. But yeah, just and married life and got her two dogs, and just riding the same roller coaster we all are of college football. And so they're undefeated and had a great win and over LSU, and we're open last week. And so, but yeah, just extremely proud of her, proud of Fisher, and just I think she's going to get a chance to come see her brother play here in a week or so. So we're excited about that.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Well, obviously, Chandler, I've known him for a long time, and I've been keeping up with him as obviously you and I communicate pretty much weekly. So I've been keeping up with his career. But man, what an awesome opportunity now for him to be on the biggest stage here and leading Virginia to an incredible season. I put out a couple pictures a couple weeks ago. Sarah and I got to travel up to Virginia to be with you and Paula to watch Chandler and Tony and all these guys with a big top 10 win over FSU. But just share a little bit about what it's been like kind of being a father during those games and, just kind of watching Chandler now, literally. I mean, I just saw this morning, his name mentioned as one of these guys watch list for the Heisman because the season that he's had to this point. But maybe just a couple thoughts on how he's doing there at Virginia this year.
Yeah, Jeff, it's really, you asked me what it's like. I mean, it's actually miserable watching him for sitting in the stands. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's you take every snap you're living and dying, and but I shouldn't say that. It's gut wrenching because I have no control. I'd much rather call plays in front of 100,000 people than sit and watch your own son play at that level. But because I have no control. But he's having such a special year. Had a great year last year. Actually, he's had a great college career. Now he's gotten healthy, and man, just the circle of life to get him back to where he is right now and how he got here and the ups and the downs. Everybody sees, okay, yeah, he's mentioning the Heisman race and they see the great year he's having. But what they don't see, Jeff, and you and I have talked about this many, many times, many, many nights you've had to counsel me, that what you don't see is the hard times that he had to go through, the injuries, the suffering of, a game that he loved so much that didn't feel like it loved him back. And all that forged him in the fire to where he is right now, and his resilience and his ability to get back up and lay his body on the line and loves his teammates. And it's really cool to see that. And he's having a tremendous year. Just so proud for him and for Coach Elliott and that whole staff and that team, and such a deserving group of men. And to know that Chandler is having a piece of that to help unite a university and to pull a fan base together. And he would be the first to tell you he's having a great time. It's great as a dad and as a mom to see your son excel, knowing where what he went through. But if he could finish the second half of this season like he had the first half of the season, I think there's a lot of great things that could happen for this team. And when you look at their schedule, Jeff, as you know, when you look at their schedule, they're probably going to be favored in probably every game, and so they got a chance. So we'll see. It's 1 week at a time, but he's playing really, really well. And golly, it is fun to watch.
I have, Coach, I have four daughters. So I've got two that are at Clemson, and I've got one that's in a sophomore at Daniel, and one that's an eighth grader, and they're both soccer and basketball players. They both want to play D1 soccer. My younger ones do. You have any advice? Like how did you balance being a coach and then getting Chandler the all the training that he needed to be able to be a recruit for pretty big college programs? You have any
You
advice for me?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, I know you got four daughters, but I remember in probably the last drive of that Florida State game, I'm literally sitting there. Paula's sitting beside Sarah. I'm sitting beside Jeff. Um, I got my hat off. I got my head in my hands like this, and I'm like,
I
I
think
look
I
over
saw
at
that
Sarah.
picture.
I look over at Sarah, and I said, whatever you do, don't let Hunter be a quarterback. Just whatever. Just don't do that. And, and so, anyways, uh, you know, I, he grew up around it his entire life. I mean, he was, so many people. It takes a village. I do know that. It takes a village to raise a family, and there's so many people that have touched our kids' lives. Jeff and Sarah being as instrumental as anybody. I even mentioned that in McKenzie's wedding. Just the impact they've had in our kids' life and to be around great players, for him to hang around Sammy and Taj and Deshaun, and I mean that's just what they did. I mean he would tell stories about just coaches' kids. And I know we're running long, but this is a great story. You got we're in the middle of a practice, and again we got a group of coaches' kids. If you look at them now, I think there was like 6 or 7 Division I football players in our coaches kid group, and they're third, fourth grade, and they're over there on the side, and I mean they're busting heads now. They're getting after it. And I remember we were having a bad practice, and Coach Sweeney blew the whistle. He was upset. He stopped practice, and he said, "You want to know what practice is? You want to know how to go hard in practice? Look over at those kids over there. Look at those coaches' kids." Well, anyway, so it's stuff like that. They grew up around it, and we would go in for dinner, and they would take Clay Sweeney, and because Clay was the youngest of all of them, they'd shoot him down the laundry chute so he could get in the equipment room and come out with a pair of socks for everybody. It was because Abe had the equipment room locked up, and so but no, really, advice is just I think the biggest thing is just keeping your kids involved, keeping them going, keep them involved. Soccer is. I've got one of my really good friends. His daughter played soccer at Alabama, and she's playing professional soccer there in Charlotte right now. And just the commitment that has to be made at that level. Everybody's good. It's just what separates you, and it's just a little bit of extra work. It's the mental conditioning when things don't go good. Everybody's an All-American when it's 72 and partly cloudy, but man, when things aren't going good, how do you handle things? And but yeah, as a dad, man, just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. Because when they do get to that Division I level, it's a whole nother ball game for you as a parent. I mean, you got a weight of a fan base that's sitting on your shoulders,
Yeah.
and the last thing, look, you can talk negative about me all you want. I've had that being the head coach, and yeah, but man, when you start when you start saying something about my son or whatnot, I mean it gets a little personal, and it happened to me this past week in Louisville. I mean, heck, I have a guy in the bathroom that's from Louisville, and he'd been drinking a little bit too much, and it was right after the game, and he was just, man, he was just ranting and raving. And then, because Chandler got hit pretty good on that second to last play, and man, he said some things, and I just finally had enough. I just turned and said, "Listen, man, that's my son you're talking about." And he's like, "No, I didn't know." I go, "No, it's my son." And then, I mean, he was about 65 years old, and he was just rattling. And the next thing you know, I mean, he was trying to get out of that bathroom as quick as he could. It's just, oh my goodness, man. Just enjoy it. I mean, it's a special time, but I envy you, and what a great place to be at for your girls.
Yeah. Thanks for that advice. That's good advice.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you joining us. This is something we've been looking forward to whenever Eric and I were talking about starting the podcast. I said we definitely got to have Coach Morris on as our first guest because to the people that follow Clemson as closely as so many of our fans do, they remember the impact that you had on our program at Clemson, and obviously just an incredible time there. And like we've talked about, you and Paula and McKenzie and Chandler. One of my, Eric and I like to play golf when we can. Talk a little bit about golf. And one of my favorite golf trips ever was 2 years ago, and my dad and I got to join you and Chandler at Pebble Beach for 4 days. And those are the things that matters. Those relationships, those experiences with people that you love. That hey, you've got people that have your back no matter what. Kind of been through the fire. So we appreciate you. We're very excited. I think Clemson has kind of adopted Virginia as our second team. Now that maybe we may potentially mathematically be out of the ACC championship run this year. You got a lot of Clemson fans pulling for Virginia, pulling for Chandler, pulling for Tony,
Yeah.
and so we're going to be excited to watch him and also keep up with you over the next few years. So thank you for joining us, and let's do it again.
Yeah, again, I appreciate you guys having me. Look forward to getting back on, and we love our Tigers and we love our Wahoos now, and it's such a special time, great memories, and again, really appreciate y'all having me on.